Hey everyone, welcome back to Ink and Effort, the podcast where we turn your writing dreams into a productive reality one page at a time. I'm your host, James Fox, and we've got a pretty special episode this week. We're talking about technology. And that's not to diminish what we did last week. I thought last week was really, really important. I mean, I think that balancing of life is tricky. I mean, it is a hard thing, right? When you're talking about just making room, right? That's pretty tough. But this one is going to be a hot topic. Everybody's got an opinion about technology. There's a lot of technology out right now that is, I don't know, it's getting people a little bit worked up. It's making people a little bit scared. There are people deploying it and using it effectively and efficiently and really driving product down. I mean, they are putting down ink like nobody's business. So, how do we tap into that? How do we do it in an ethical way? And is it something to be scared of? Anytime you're talking about advancing tools, anytime you're talking about like changing the status quo or changing something that we're all used to something that we're not anymore, the calculator, the modern hammer, the automobile, like people start getting freaked out about, like, well, how's that going to change life as we know it? How's that going to change jobs? How's this going to impact people's ability to feed their families? Those are all very valid questions. Okay, we're probably not going to touch on that today. I mean, I think that those are ethical questions, and what we're talking about here is writing books, right? So AI is going to come up, right? Midjourney, ChatGPT, these things are going to come up because they're tools that people are using right now. And I don't think they're necessarily things that we need to be scared of. I think that they're things that need to be embraced, and obviously they need to be regulated. But they're not necessarily, they're just a tool, and how you use them is going to dictate whether or not they become evil or good, right? Like, the tool itself is inherently neither. But in the right or wrong hands, it could be both or either. So, I think that the big part here is we're talking about tools, we're talking about processes, we're talking about things that can drive efficiency for you as an author, so that when you do have the time to put your butt in a chair and put some ink down, put some words down, you're doing it in the most effective way possible. You're not spending your time spinning your wheels or doing research that ChatGPT could do for you in 30 seconds, right? It's something I use ChatGPT for. I use to research. I use Midjourney to do concept art, so that if I have an image of what a fighter wants, I want a fighter to look like, or I need to use some science and mix it in with this fighter, and I'm not really sure what that's going to look like because it's a gyroscopic design, a la the Last Starfighter, and it's got to have this, that, and this. I'll use Midjourney and generate 100 different things until I find one that I like and be like, okay, cool, I'm going to describe that in my book. Does that ever see the light of day? No, it's just something for my brain to like take all of these abstract ideas and mash together into something that is visual, that I can then describe visually in my words, right? And some people don't need that. I mean, some people, they've got it all up here anyway. Great, good for you. I don't. Like, I need the help. So, rather than sitting here trying to sketch, which I can't draw, so, I can sit here and try to sketch out a drawing and try to apply all of these things, or I can just have Midjourney do it for me and save a bunch of time. So, again, you got to follow your heart in these things, and you got to try to find a way to make it work for you if you want to use these tools. But the reason why I'm excited isn't necessarily about the topic, it's about who we're talking to. Now this author has a process that is streamlined and battle hardened, I would say. It's not just tested. I mean, he has really turned this into a system, an operational standard for himself, and I'm gonna invite him into the room, into the chat, and he's gonna enter, and he's gonna rock and roll it. He's probably gonna talk the whole time straight through, and because he's got this process, but this is not something he's trying to figure out in real time with us. He knows what he's doing, and he is very happy to share. And I am very happy to welcome Mark Stallings. My man, how are you doing?
I'm great. I'm here at DEFCON in Las Vegas, world's largest hacker convention. We're excited to get it going.
Oh man, that's fun. Yeah, you just shared the carpet with me. They've got some pretty interesting carpet there. Is that at the convention center?
Yep, Las Vegas Convention Center.
Nice. Yeah, I recognize that from NAB. Well, it's kind of interesting that you're there because we're going to be talking about technology today and technology that empowers authors. Here at Ink and Effort, we really like to try to keep the effort down as much as possible, and technology is definitely something that helps with that. So, and I know you like to deploy a lot of really cool tech. I mean, you're at DEFCON for goodness sake. So, um, so let's dive in a little bit and talk about this. Like, how do you think that technology has transformed the writing process, the career of
Oh, I
being an
do.
author?
And and especially, not just, like right now everybody's all about generative AI, but just getting back to fundamental tools and process. So I'm a technology guy. I've been doing programming and development stuff, implementing systems for Fortune 50 companies for the last 27 years. And so when I came to the writing world, I wanted to leverage that process and technology to try to make the writing process less murky, mysterious, and painful, right? And so I'm happy to jump right into what I do and how I do it. If
Yeah,
you're
go
okay
for
with
it.
that.
Of course.
All right. So everything starts with an initial concept. And so what I do is I come up with a synopsis for the story I want to write, and then I leverage something that's called a book package. So I put the synopsis in. I like to do 7-point story structure to kind of get my points down. And then I leverage, and it used to be we would do photo bashing with Deposit Photo. Now I can use technologies like ChatGPT-4 or Midjourney to kind of come up with a cover concept. I'm not talking about making a production-ready cover, but just something that gives me something to target for. Something I can print out, I can put it up on my wall. So as I'm trying to come up with, the outline and later on the story, I've got a target to look at. I can look up at my image and say, yes, this is the story direction I want it to go. And then if I'm pitching that story, then what I can do is lay that out for a potential publisher, and they can see that I've put a lot of thought into what it is that I want to do. So once I've gone through 7-point story structure, what I like to do is use a technology called Contour. And so it was a software package by a company called Mariner Software, and you can still get it on Amazon. But basically, it's based on a story called My Story Can Beat Up Your Story, the book. And so it's a screenwriting book. It's kind of in the same genre with Save the Cat. And so the whole idea is that with My Story Can Beat Up Your Story, it breaks everything down into yes, no question. Again, I'm a software guy. I like the process. So you go through and you answer the question, yes and no, and you break down your story into those beats. And what it does is it's not an outline, and this was kind of the first time I used it, kind of struggled with it mentally. But what it does is it gets you the template to then say, to tell a good story, to get the emotional resonance with the reader, you should have highs and lows of your character. Right? And so then I take that contour bit and then I build an outline. I use Microsoft Word. I put it into an outline format, and I've sprinkled in, it's just like Kung Fu, right? You study under 4 or 5 different masters and you kind of come up with Mark Fu for outlining. And so I do a 30-chapter outline. I have 2 scenes per chapter, and I put in the location, the point of view, and what is it that I'm trying to accomplish. And specifically, I look at 3 things. What is the goal of this scene? What is the conflict that we're coming up with within this scene? And what is the resolution? What is it that I want as the author to try to advance my story? What is it that I want to do? And so I put all of that into the outline there. And then I take my story into Scrivener. And so Scrivener is a writing tool. It was actually built by a guy who wanted to work on his master's thesis. And so it is very detail-oriented around research and characters and places and all that. And so I like having everything in one tool. So if I need to remember, okay, what magic power did this particular professor have? I've already done that. I just go click on that little entry, and I got it, and I can just jump right back up into the management. Okay. So when it comes time to write, I like dictation. Okay, so I'm a dirty dictator. And so what happens is, from personal experience of trying a whole bunch of different things, I record into a digital recorder, and I have a very high-end microphone. I'm not using these little earbuds that I have now, but a high-end microphone. And so what I did is initially I had Skull Candy headphones plugged into my iPhone, and I was just doing a voice memo. And so I found in doing the transcription process, the higher quality the recording, the better the transcription process goes. And we're talking by like percentage points. And I'm not talking small percentage points. Like, we're talking about upper 80s for just Skull Candy while I'm working out at the gym to, upper 90s when I'm dealing with my Sennheiser microphone and running it through transcription. Okay, so once I have that audio file, and here's the reason why I like audio files. I do 15 to 20-minute recordings. I'm just focused on that scene, answering those 3 questions. What's the goal of the scene? What's the conflict that I'm trying to do, and what's the ultimate resolution? What's the goal that I'm trying to get to? I focus on those 3 bits, and then whatever detail I have for that particular scene, I think about it, and then I start the recording. So I'm just doing one file. And the reason for that is twofold. If I have a recording fail, and I've had some in the past, I'm only out one scene. I'm only out 15 to 20 minutes of my life, which is awesome. And so the other bit of it is then I can chunk it. So as I can focus on running a scene through transcription, and then I can go do my next revision task. Okay? Now, the technology that I use to actually take that audio file into text is Mac Whisper. I'm a Mac guy. I run it on the Mac. The Mac is the Mac Whisper of the Whisper project. It's an AI project out there that basically takes that spoken audio into the text. It's great because it seems to have a higher quality than the competitor. I've spent a lot of time working with Nuance for Dragon Naturally Speaking. The pain that I have with that is that it is now a PC-only product. Yeah. They killed the Mac version years ago, so then you get into that. So I paid $49 for Mac Whisper, the Pro version of Mac Whisper. The Pro version, the actual commercial version of Dragon Naturally Speaking version 16, I want to say is like $600.
Yeah, it's really expensive.
So, for somebody, we're all about pennies here, right? I'm willing to pay for tools. I'm a technology guy, happy to do it. I'm not willing to drop $600 on an inferior product.
Right.
Sorry, Nuance, you guys need to get your act together and compete with what's out there. So once I run it through Mac Whisper, now this is where people start to get a little grumbly, is I use ChatGPT to clean up my dictation. So here's the differentiation. I have a macro that says, without changing the following text, format this according to the Chicago Manual Style version 17. I do not want it to change my text. No, I can screw up my own text. I don't need AI to help me. So what I need them to help me do is put the quotes and the periods in the right spot. And it does a phenomenal job. This was like magic. And I don't know if this is a PG-13 podcast or not, but it was effing magic. I mean, like literally, in seconds, it was able to do stuff that would take me hours to do. Okay? And so here's the thing. Transcription, voice dictation is not perfect. I do fantasy and science fiction. Sometimes it really transcribes things wrong, especially when I'm doing science fiction. I'm dealing with lots of alien races. I use phonetic keywords. And so, like, I'm military background, so I'll use the phonetic alphabet. So if I'm talking about, a Javul, then I will use, Juliet, because transcription understands the phonetic alphabet. It's fantastic. And I just do it when in between spots, between when I do the transcription and when I'm ready to start doing revision, then I can actually get it to do search and replace on character names, races, anything that I set a keyword for, so they really streamline that process. Okay. Right? That way I don't have to go through and fix unknown words. Right? I don't want it to have to try to struggle with trying to figure it out. Now, here's the deal. In the minute, when I get in the moment, especially, battle scenes, fight scenes, whatever, I forget to use the phonetic spelling sometimes. So it does a good job for the most part. But yeah, when you're doing your revision pass on it, it really struggles. just to summarize what I do. So I speak into a digital recorder. I take that audio file and run it through transcription. And I take that transcription and I have ChatGPT clean it up from a formatting perspective, not a text perspective. Now I have the text file that I can put into Scrivener, and then I'll start my actual revision. I will read through it, I'll make any obvious corrections, I'll add detail as I need it, and then I do a speaking pass. Because here's the deal. My day job, I deal with call center automation software, speech recognition, text-to-speech, reading it out loud. Here's the rule of thumb. If you have problems saying it, a reader's going to have a problem reading. So I go through that process, and I get a really clean copy, off to the editor.
Wow. Okay. So, is there anything that you use after you get your book down? Like, are you an autocrit guy? Do you go through any kind of like analysis?
So, like before I send it out, the very last thing I do is I run it through Pro Writing Aid. So I compared Grammarly to Pro Writing Aid. When I was I read a lot of the articles out on 20 Books to 50K. A lot of people did comparison. And so what sold me is I used Pro Writing Aid, and I had a scene. So it was for my third novel I was writing. And so when I ran it through, just that sample, it said, you used weak, W-E-E-K. Did you mean weak, W-E-A-K? Then strength. And I was like, sold. And so that I basically do that one time right before I send it out. And here's the reason why. I mean, any tool that you use, Grammarly, Pro Writing Aid, AutoCrit, it's trying hard to be helpful. And so what it does is it takes whatever you're going to put in it, and it's going to try to give you the best suggestions that it can for the moment. And so this is the reason why I only do it once. So just as a test, I took a piece of text, and I ran through Pro Writing Aid, and I went through and accepted their changes. And then I closed the program, I brought it back up, so there was no caching. And then I ran the new improved version of that text through Pro Writing Aid, and it suggested I undo some of the changes. So here's the caution. Review what it's recommending. So like if it's sentence structure or adding commas, because I suck at adding commas, I'll do it. But I don't blindly accept changes, because there's some things, especially when it starts speaking around passive voice, there are times you need passive voice in order for it to make sense. Or it really gets grumpy around dialogue, especially if you're doing something like Southern dialogue or, the Boston Harvard kind of dialect.
Anything with an inflection.
To explain that out phonetically. Yeah, and it gets grumpy with that. And it's like, no, you're not changing my dialect. Let's move on. So you just click ignore and it moves. Or if you have character names. I mean, character names are kind of weird too, where it's like, no, I think you mean Steve. And I'm like, no, I definitely don't mean Steve. So let's keep moving.
So, okay. So then you send it to your editor. Now, do you send along like the generative AI stuff that you made to like cover artists or whatever as like hey, this is kind of the inspirational images that I was using, or those are strictly just in your office for you?
So if I'm doing a concept, like I'm trying to do a cover concept where I'm going to ultimately work with an artist, yes, I'll send them. I send collages where I look like a serial killer where I pasted stuff into pictures. Yeah. I've done some Mid-Journey stuff. I've had to, most of the time, Mid-Journey or any of those generative AI art things, they can get it close. They can't get exactly what I want. Right. So you tend to photo bash up a bunch of like Mid-Journey bits or whatever just to try to come up with a concept. But then you have a discussion. You say, hey, what I really want is I want a dude on a dragon that doesn't look like a horse with wings.
Right.
Right? I mean, for whatever reason, Mid-Journey just cannot do a person riding a dragon.
Well, it struggles with dragons just in general, yeah.
It does. Most importantly, dragons as a mount, because it tries to turn them all into horses.
Right.
And so, I'm a big fan of generative AI for art. I'm not an artist by any stretch of the imagination. So any bit that I can give to an artist to actually come up with a cover for me, I'm going to totally use it.
Okay, cool. Yeah, so one of the things, this is kind of outside of putting ink on the page, but I want to touch on it anyway because a lot of us authors struggle with marketing. and
Oh,
you
yeah.
you deploy some pretty impressive uh, workflows or pipelines of technology to create some pretty interesting marketing pieces. Do you want to talk about that just for a minute or two?
So I'm trying. What I'm trying to do is I'm trying to avoid paying the big engines, if you will, not to name names, but the one place that sounds like it belongs in a library and might have something to do with an anatomy piece, or the largest online retailer in the country named after the thing that Wonder Woman is. So I don't want to pay them advertising money
Right.
because that is I don't make that much money off of my books right now. Hopefully that will change. But what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to build up my social media following. And so I've leveraged a tool. So I use Later Social. It was referred to me by a friend. So I have the first paid version. There is a free version, but I have the first paid version. I want a little more of the analytics on best time to post. And so I can generate content to then use Later Social to distribute it to Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, LinkedIn, um, and YouTube Shorts. Those are all I have. So there's some others. If you do Pinterest, you can do that too.
Right.
I'm not a Pinterest guy. But anyway, so in order to generate content, the real interesting thing is like TikTok through Later Social. I cannot take a picture and post it to TikTok because if you use the analytics, which is weird, but if you go into the TikTok application, you can post a picture. And what TikTok does is it takes it and turns it into a 15-second movie. It takes that static picture. So then I was like, maybe I should start looking at something like CapCut. And so CapCut is actually a video editing software package that was made by the people who make TikTok. So I was like, oh, well, this kind of fits if I want to make videos for that. And so then I've gone 9 steps further. And so what I do is I use, this is going to get a little complicated, Book Brush, where you can take your cover and turn it into a 3D rendering of your cover. So now it looks like it's on a book or it's on an iPad, something along those lines. And so then I take that 3D image and I go into Stencil. And so I got a one-time charge subscription to Stencil through AppSumo because of 20 books to 50K. So I use Stencil because I can build a template real quick of a specific size. And so TikTok wants a minimum size, so it's like a square. So then I take that 3D image, I put a background on it, and then I can take that 3D book into it just to make that static image and add text. Now, if I'm going to do it in CapCut, then I just want the image size out of Stencil, so that way I can pull it into CapCut, and then I pull all my artifacts into CapCut. That way I can move them, resize them, have them appear, disappear. And so within CapCut, then you can use things like animations and transitions and things along those lines. And so then you just drag in the different art or modify the text or add in audio to then generate a movie based upon that. Now, one of the things I've been experimenting with is 2 different things. Within CapCut, you have the ability to do it basically, if you have any narration, it will basically, like if I have a video like of this podcast, where you can have it go ahead and generate the closed caption tags for what's being said. Right? So that's one method. And so the other method is, especially if I'm doing like a book ad, where I'm going to have text that appears, then I can generate audio to then go with the text. And so I do that through a tool called 11 Labs, where I'm using AI-generated audio. And so a lot of people are like, oh my God, AI. Well, here's the deal. All of the commercial IVR systems, when you call your bank, healthcare, whatever, they have text-to-speech engines that started being created back in 1990. I mean, so I've been working with this for years and years and years. 11 Labs just has the ability to take audio and break it down into its constituent phoneme. Yes, I know I'm getting nitty-gritty on you, but it's because this isn't scary. They just have a really nice algorithm to understand which of the phonemes you need and to smooth it out. So it has the appropriate inflection. So if you're asking me a question or you're making a statement,
Right.
it's going to either rise or fall. And so 11 Labs does a really good job of that. And so then I'm able to add in that narration through CapCut. It's been beautiful. I did subscribe up to like a 10-day CapCut boot camp. I made it through three days of it. So even in 3 days, my video production increased dramatically. And so I wholeheartedly recommend. Yes, it sounds like I just threw 1,000 tools at you, but here's the deal. A lot of them have free versions. It isn't that scary. Just play with it. Even the AI generative stuff like Midjourney that I use, you get the first taste is free, and then you get a certain number of image generation. Just play with it.
Yeah.
I mean, anything you can do to streamline your creativity process, and that's all I'm doing is I'm using a set of tools to try to make it so that I focus more on the creativity aspects of it and less on the maintenance stuff, administration. I'm a business guy who came to writing, so writing is the struggle for me, and I want to be able to do it as much as possible.
What do you think people's reluctance to using tools is? Like when I talk with people about digital tools, they kind of panic. Like I see this like wildness in their face where they get kind of nervous. Like I'm telling them to cheat on the exam or something.
Well, so there's two pieces of it. One is people fear change. People fear new tools, and they become adverse. They're intimidated by the learning factor. I mean, here's the reality. You're going to learn something new every day until you die. You're going to learn how to log into Netflix. You're going to learn how to optimize, that registration process. You're going to learn how to use a laptop. Now we're scanning our own freaking groceries at the grocery store. So you're going to have to learn something. Technology is pervasive. And so the real challenge that people have is that fear of learning and that I don't have time to do that. Well, here's the reality. If you can chop wood 9 times faster with a chainsaw, is it worth your while to learn how to use that chainsaw to cut that wood if you can do it faster? Then you're spending less time doing it. Right? Same thing with Later Social, CapCut. I mean, I literally took, like 4th of July. I mean, we had family dinner. I just went in there. I spent 2 hours and made my first video. It was easy. I mean, you just go look at YouTube videos. There's people out there. There's resources to figure it out. A lot of these companies have training. There's third-party training. I mean, you don't have to do it all today. You don't have to boil the ocean. Second piece of it is people have a lot of resistance to anything with an AI label. So here's the reality. Back in 1995, when Windows 95 came out, all of the manufacturers of all the peripheral objects rushed out to put stickers on their stuff to say Windows 95 compatible, right? Mice, keyboards, printers. I mean, come on, like normal stuff, right? This pencil is Windows 95 compatible. Are you kidding me? So now everybody's rushing to put that AI sticker on it. I mean, we're talking about large language models. We're talking about decision engines. It's not scary. And so what becomes, people get an opinion about it, is it's all based on fear. There is a fear that they're going to somehow lose their job or lose their ability to earn money doing whatever. I promise you. It's just like the dudes who came up with the light bulb that never burns out. Those dudes are still working their posteriors off. Why? Because there's always new things going. Yep. So I use generative AI for images because I'm not an artist, right? And so I can't just bust out a character concept that I can paste on my wall to say, yes, that is what the main character in my book looks like. I can't do it. Right. And could I learn how to be an artist? Yes. Am I going to take the next 10 years to be an awesome artist? No. Am I still going to use an artist on my next novel? Absolutely, because I want a dude on a dragon that has the normal number of fingers that I can talk with a human about and say, this is what I want.
Yeah.
And so people become AI averse or whatever because they're afraid that either they or someone they know is not going to be able to put food on the kid's table.
Yeah, and I'm glad you bring up the whole idea of the large language model or decision engine because it's not really AI the way we think of like Skynet, right?
It is not.
Like people think like people find out I use Midjourney to do, internal concept art. It's just concept art for myself. But they panic because they're like, you're feeding your art into this thing that is now taking it and using it wherever. And I'm like, two responses to that usually. And right? Like, okay, cool. Like, and then the other thing
Exactly.
is, like, what is that going to do? Like, that's not going to end humanity as we know it. Like, that's not, Skynet's not going to come down because it read my book and, like, whatever. I don't know. I don't understand the fear. Like, I get the idea of losing jobs. They had the same fear with the calculator, right? When the calculator came out, it was, oh my God, Americans are never going to be able to do math again. Mathematicians are going to lose their jobs. And that wasn't the case. Like, we all got better at math, and now, like, there's lots more math jobs because of it. So I feel like we're going down the same route with a lot of these tools that are large language model driven or powered.
Now, I'm gonna, I use ChatGPT for work. And I've been using it for a really long time. And so, specifically, it's phenomenal for documenting stuff. I have a process that I need to have built, and I do not want to do the research to figure out how to add permission sets for an AWS user to be able to get access to an S3 bucket. And so I can tell ChatGPT, hey, give me a process to add permissions to a user to get to this specific S3 bucket. And so it spits it out. So then, my wife works at Microsoft, and so she's been doing a lot of research into Copilot, and she asked me a question. She said, have you ever used ChatGPT to write a newsletter? I was like, well, no, I've never done that. She's like, have you looked at it? Honestly, I haven't, because I haven't considered to use generative AI for that. And so the really nice thing about these kind of tools is if you can give it an input of some sort or degree, it actually produces a really interesting output. I have a specific example. Years ago, I was in a writing workshop. And so I have a story idea that I haven't really executed on. But I had come up with a 7-point story structure, like for my book package. Came up with a 7-point story structure and a really nice synopsis. And I had started writing on the story, so I have the first scene. So what I did was I took that 7-point story structure and the synopsis and dumped it into ChatGPT and said, give me a 30-chapter outline based on Save the Cat. Just wanted to see if it would do it. Bam. Spit it out in minutes. It was awesome. And so then I'm looking at this and I'm like, what would be really interesting? Let's see what we can do to stretch this. And so I typed in, take the above outline, add in a love interest between the male and female protagonist, and it's the dude's ex-girlfriend who's now in charge of running the trials that the female protagonist has to go through. Right? So I wanted to have a B love story between the main characters. And so it went through and rebaked that 30-chapter outline, now putting in the love interest. Is it a perfect outline? Yeah, I could probably write a perfect outline. Is it where I want it to be with all of my conflicts, my goals, and no, it's not there yet. But it was fantastic to take my input and generate out something that is additive. And so I was very impressed with that. So I think that people need to give it a try.
Yeah.
And whether you use it or not, that's you. I mean, here's the scary part of writing for me, is taking that outline, and now you have to sit down and actually start pounding on a keyboard.
Right.
And so there are tools out there that talk about generative AI for actually writing your book for you, given the right prompts. I don't know that it's there yet. I think it could be getting close, especially, so then you become a prompt engineer. You're less going to be, but here's the thing. Are you willing, it gets back to chopping wood. Are you want to use an axe? Cool. There's the keyboard right there. Go crazy. You want to use a chainsaw? Here you go. You want to use the Turbo Lightsaber Wood Chopper 9000? Dude, they're trying to work on it. I mean, It's coming.
Yeah, I've actually
just try it.
There's actually a few that I've tested, that I've beta tested, that basically walk you through an outlining process where you start with a main idea, you give them like a log line, and then it breaks it down into like, here are your main characters, then it gives you your main character beats, then it generates an outline for you, and you can adjust the outline, and then you hit generate chapter, and it'll generate a chapter of the book for you. And my issue with it is it's still very redundant. It's got this very like cyclical kind of like redundancy to it, where it kind of starts the chapter off with like the conflict, and then at the end of the chapter it kind of like revisits the conflict and like closes it. So it's got this like weird kind of like inorganic thing. It's a very like systems way.
PowerPoint presentation.
Right,
This is what
right.
I'm going to tell you. I tell you, and then this is what I told you.
Right. So
I don't think AI is to the point where it's going to remove a human from the process.
No.
I mean, I do deal with it like for high-end business systems. It's just not there. And so a buddy of mine said, AI are like people. There's some really smart people, and there's some really dumb people. And so I think we're at the dumb part of AI right now, but I think it's getting better.
Sure.
So if people are interested in using it for specific things, if you can narrow it down and get as super specific as what you want in that small microcosm of AI, I think it's phenomenal. And then the larger you try to get it, like write me a thriller novel based on a Vietnam vet who's hard on his luck and you're now like, wow, what are you going to get?
Right.
It's just going to make stuff up.
Right. Yeah. I try to use AI as like an assistant, like I don't want to do all of the like astrophysics for this particular reentry plan that I have, right? And so I have.
Yeah, but here's the problem with that, right? I mean, like making stuff up. Like I'm comfortable using it with very specifics for my day job because I'm giving it concrete requirements. Give me the permission, the process to add a permission to a specific user, this specific S3 bucket. It's not trying to make stuff up. If you ask it for the reentry process for a future space vehicle, I mean, is it really going to pull NASA? Is it going to give you the Challenger reentry process?
Yeah, so
I've done it. Pull Dragon? I mean, for SpaceX? I mean, what is it doing?
I've done it a few times, and I have it cite its sources and give me specifics, and I have it give me the math, right? So it'll actually give me its breakdown of math. But again, I approach it kind of like you do, where it's like I want very specific things. Like I'm asking very specific questions, giving very specific speeds, weights, dates. Dates are important, and so like I check the data, right? Like you never just accept what ChatGPT gives you. Always check it. Always make sure that it looks right. So like I feel like I get pretty close with it. I mean, there's been times where it's like it fudged it a lot. I fixed it a little. I landed on a little is better than just completely out of left field. I'd rather be a little right.
I had a discussion earlier this week with a publisher, and we were talking about, good enough. And so, like, if I can use the tool to generate a product, just like what I do with my day job, right? If I'm trying to get something, if I can get it 80% to where then I can take it across the goal line, I mean, I think that becomes valuable. Where I'm going to caution new authors is that, like, when I first started writing, I didn't understand story structure. And so then it can become bumper rolls. Break it down into constituent bits. Like, come up with your outline. I use 30 because, I write 1,500 word scenes. A chapter is about $3,000, and I'm shooting for a 90,000 word novel, right? So I'm mathing it. I have some chapters that are longer and some chapters that are shorter, but I had to learn the process. And so use AI in those microcosms of give me something concrete, give me a 30 chapter outline that I can then take to my writing mentor and say, hey, I generated this outline, and then I've added all of the bits, or I've changed everything that I want to change to actually align it with my vision of this story. That's the thing that AI doesn't have. It doesn't have that vision of the story that you do. And AI also lacks the ability to put in those spontaneous quirks.
Right.
Like all of a sudden I had a character took a big left turn and met a girl, and as he was trying to accomplish a task. And that's not something that I baked into my AI or my outline. I mean, I had no idea, and I'm a very plot-oriented individual.
Yeah.
So you need those moments of spontaneity that AI can't give you.
Exactly. All right. Well, don't be scared of technology. Is what I'm hearing.
Exactly.
Use it.
And take the time to learn it. Just take time. Take an afternoon. You don't have to boil the ocean. Just learn one little thing, and then that it just becomes cumulative.
Yep.
And this thing leads you into the next thing, which leads you into the next thing. And ask lots of questions. That's what I do.
Yeah. All right. Mark, where can everybody find out about what you're up to, what you're excited about, and what projects you're working on? And see your cool marketing, social media stuff.
Oh, yeah. So my website's markstallings.com. I am Mad Coffee Mark on Instagram, and I think I'm Mark Stallings author on TikTok. I'm very new to TikTok, so if you like what you see there, please follow me. Here's the magic. If you can get over 100 followers, then these tools like Later Social will actually tell you when are the best times to engage with your followers, that kind of fun stuff. But I'm also on Facebook. I'm on Twitter, X, whatever it's called. That's another one of those channels I keep forgetting about. I'm more of a push to that channel than really interact with. Yeah. But if you want to interact with me, TikTok, Instagram, and Facebook.
All right, right on. And what are you working on right now that you're excited about?
So I am in the edit process of my second novel in the Silver Coin Saga called The Animals. And then when I get back, I have 2 weeks to come up with a solid outline for book 3 and review it with my publisher. And then my goal is to write that book in 6 weeks using dictation.
Woo! Right on. All right. Well, we're excited. We're excited to watch that happen. Mark, thank you for your time, and
thank you for having me.
Thanks for taking time outside of your busy DEFCON schedule to chat with us. I appreciate it.
I appreciate you.
All right, man. Have a good one.
All right. Bye.
Bye. All right. So, look, technology can't be something that you're scared of. I mean, we're all sitting at computers probably. I doubt you're on a typewriter, right? So, don't be scared of the new technology. I mean, I think it's important that we embrace new tools as they become available to us. And I think Mark was saying the same thing. I think that the important part here is to sift. Find what works for you. You don't have to use everything. I mean, just because Mark talked about it, just because he suggested it, doesn't necessarily mean you have to go run out there and buy it and use it. I mean, find what works for you. I'm not a dictation guy. We've talked about this before. I speak and I type completely different. I don't even like the way that I talk, right? So, it's like, it's important that you find something that works for you, and then you apply it as best you can into your process. I mean, that's the whole point, is it's your process. And we want to keep your butt in the chair, your hands on the keys, and the ink flowing, because that's how you're going to get your story told. If you can find some tools that help empower you to do that, I recommend you use them. I recommend you use them, right? It's important. It's imperative that you maximize the efficiency with which you're working, right? I think that's just good business sense. So anyway, digital tools. There's lots of them out there. I mean, we barely scratched the surface, and I'm really glad that Mark went through his entire pipeline, because he's spent a lot of time and effort in developing that pipeline, and that's a very specific workflow for him to get the things done that he wants to get done. So jump up on the internet, do some searching. There's a ton out there. I mean, I can recommend a bunch more. Hit me up on social media, and I'll tell you what I use. But until then, keep writing, keep pushing, and remember, it's the ink and the effort that brings these stories to life. Don't forget to subscribe, like, and follow us on all the social media platforms, and for more tips and tricks and inspiration. All right? Keep on writing.